The CK truck has always been a popular platform for building sport trucks. So ever since it came out in '88. The reason behind going with the 88 to 98 is, one, we've always been really heavy into C10s, but you know, I think these trucks are going to really become more popular as the years go on. You know, they're still relatively affordable to get. To buy a 90 and kind of do something that would throw back a little bit to that. So with a little different twist, taking bigger brakes, bigger wheels, and kind of putting that modern twist on it, but still having that classic look. Here we got this 90 that we're going to do, and one of the first things we want to address is the brakes, because
the 88 to 98 CK trucks are some of the worst trucks we've ever tested for braking performance.
So it seemed like a natural fit.
They featured undersized rotors and single piston cast iron calipers.
So we're getting ready to support the lower control arm, so we can go ahead and get the ball joints loose for the spindle. That way when the ball joint pops, we don't, the lower control arm doesn't drop all the way out, and spring doesn't come out. If you like the way your face is, then you'll want to do this. We're going to try and see if we leave the top shock mount hooked up, if we can still get the bottom through the lower control arm. We'll see if it works. All right, we'll let the spring put the pressure on the lower ball joint, so that'll help it pop loose. And then once it's loose, we'll go ahead and jack up the arm, remove the spindle, and then slowly release the lower arm so we get that spring out. We're gonna go ahead and remove the upper ball joint, let the spindle come forward, and then that'll keep, if the spring does come out, it'll hit the spindle and mostly stay in there. So, but we should be okay. I think the spring's short enough to not come out of this. We got all the old parts off the truck. Time to go ahead and prep the new spindle. We're gonna be using a 2.5-inch McGoy spindle. Took the old spring out because when we put it back together, we're gonna be using a 2-inch drop spring at the same time. So once the new spindle's ready with all the caliper, hub, assembly, rotor on it, we'll go ahead and drop it on the ball joints and button it all up.
Naturally, we teamed up with Bear, and they're gonna work with us and do our 14-inch Pro Performance kit.
And just by doing larger diameter rotor upgrades and a more modern aluminum caliper, we can net huge improvements for braking performance.
It's a good blend between performance, looks, and price.
Years ago at Bear, we did a brake system called the GT Plus that netted huge improvements on these trucks. This is basically the basis or the start of what we're doing now with AZ Pro Performance.
We're taking basically a 14-inch cross-drilled, slotted, zinc-plated, directionally vented rotor.
The system is going to feature the same type of 2-piston aluminum caliper, but we're even going to go with a little larger diameter rotor.
Again, it goes back to that perfect blend of performance, looks, and it just works really well, and it can accept that larger 14-inch rotor.
But the increased rotor diameter will even net bigger improvements than what we did in the past.
Basically what you do is you cut the caliper ears off your factory spindle or factory style drop spindle like a McGoy's, Beltec, or anything like that. Once you cut those off, you're going to use the mounting points for the dust shield bolt holes. You're going to go ahead and drill those out, tap them, and that'll serve as a purpose to mount that caliper bracket. Once that's mounted, your caliper will mount up there, and we supply a machined, fully machined billet aluminum hub.
It's always good to put a little Loctite on all the bolts, make sure they hold in there.
that you have. And of course it'll work in 20-inch wheels, most 18-inch wheels, but you know, again, most guys will do 20s or larger on these trucks. So it works really well with those to help slow that heavier rotating mass down, as well as feel that looks wise. On the rear brake kit, it's going to work with a factory rear end. So basically all you have to do is pull the rear cover, pull the C-clips out of the axle, and pull the axle so you can get this rear bracket on. Stepping to the rear, very similar setup, 14-inch rotor, basically pulling off those drums. It's going to have, we use a late model rear Mustang caliper on the rear, and again, it's cross-drilled slotted, directionally vented rear rotor and a 14-inch diameter. So they'll come loaded with bare sport pads, but the nice thing is when those pads wear down, you can go to your local auto parts store and buy just off the shelf. Got all the brakes finished up, the 14-inch with the C5 caliper up front, our Revelator kit. So pedal feels great. The earlier trucks are rear ABS, so I mean, you don't have to worry about the rear locking up. It's a lot better than it was before. They did well. It's a hell of an improvement over factory.